Hey guys, this is Shannon. You've seen me probably on several of these little things. I was just going to show you. I have a little girl here. You know that if you know me, you know that we've been dealing with dry pox, and now it's gone to wet pox, and we've almost gone through the whole flock. Yeah, but just when you think you're done, another one pops out, and so this little girl is a really pretty little blue satin. And if you look at her closely, you can see that she has pox, and she has the pox on the outside, and she has cankers in her mouth. And so if you need to see what that looks like, you can see the pox is the bumps that are out here. Now these will dry up and then they'll fall off. And then inside her mouth, let me show you if she'll let me. Inside her mouth, you can see her tongue. Okay, baby, no. It's kind of slimy, icky, but you can see her tongue. Those are cankers all over her tongue. Now, she actually had the entire roof of her mouth was full of that stuff, and I had to pull that out with tweezers. She couldn't breathe at all. She's trying to eat, and she's really putting some effort towards it, but she's having a really hard time eating because she has so many cankers in her mouth, and I've taken out most of them. But taking them off the tongue is really, really hard for her, and then the tongue bleeds because when you remove the cankers, it does tend to bleed a little bit. So I try to only remove the ones that are, like on the sides and then up in the roof of the mouth and all of that. I took all that stuff out. But on her tongue, if I were to scrape that off of her tongue, it would make her tongue bleed. And I have done some of it. Then you get to a point where you're like, okay, well, how much do you want to make her mouth bleed, So we're at the point where she's trying to eat, but she's having a really hard time doing it. So I am tube feeding her, and I am using the KT stuff. And I was just going to show you, she's very lightweight. She's losing a lot of weight because she's having trouble eating. So she's very, very thin, and she wants to eat, but she's having a hard time. And you can hear she's kind of congested. So if you feel comfortable tube feeding, this is a good solution when there's no other solution. And so there's nothing else right now that I can do for her except hope she eats. Now, if I want her to gain some weight while this is still going through its process, I have to tube feed her. And now you can watch a bunch of videos online on how to tube feed chickens. And I would suggest, if you do decide to do that, that you watch several. Now they have these big tubes. Let me get one real quick. That are like this size. Okay, I don't like these. Now the reason I don't like this is because I tend to have to do this by myself, and this thing is hard to do by itself, especially when the food is thick, which you don't want to make it too runny because then they'll regurgitate it and inhale it, and when they aspirate, they can die just like that, So you want to try to make the food as solid as you can, but still able to go through the tube. So I use this. Now, you can buy these little tubes, and let me show you what they look like, if I can find one. Let's see if there's any in here. You can buy these little tubes that you can use that you can feed through. Now they've got a softer one, but the same thing kind of happens with those. You've got these little tubes that you can get, but you have to watch because this is what happens. The little tube breaks after a while, and it can break off and they swallow it. Now, fortunately, this did not twist off and have her swallow the whole thing, because when this goes down their throat, you have to get this out because this will puncture something. And I've had to do that, and that was not fun. So I've just gotten to the point where I get really long tubes like this, and you can get them at like aquarium stores or whatever. You can get these at New Braunfels Feed, these syringes, and this is like the larger one. Tubes fit right on the end of it. You can also do smaller ones, like they have needles like like this, and they have the tubes that are like this too, but they're kind of small. I mean, you do that for like a tiny baby chick. This is the one that I like to use, and you'll have to fill it 2 times for a bird that's her size and maybe not feeling very well, 3 times for if you're really working on filling the crop. With her, because she's not feeling well, and with my Polish that's in the bathroom, I don't want to fill, if they're not feeling well, you don't want to fill their crop to full. You want to fill their crop to about half, maybe 2/3, because they will throw it up. And when they throw it up, and I did dudes. Dude is our Polish, and my husband made me trim his headpiece, and I was so bummed because he's so cool looking. But he, I only filled his crop to half, and he still threw up last night. But fortunately, I was in there, and I was able to, take like either a tissue or a Q-tip, and swab the slimy stuff out of his mouth and whatever, so that so that they can breathe, and that really helps. So I was able to do that for him last night. But this is just the KT and warm water, and I mix it into as solid as I can get it. And then I tube feed her, because as you can see, now I'll show you how I clean out her. Hold on. Now, she doesn't like when I do this, but when they're having trouble breathing, this is the best way to do it. So I'm going to kind of clean out the yucky in her mouth, so that she can hold on. I pin the feet between my legs, and that way they can't move, and I can do whatever I need to do. And you can tell she's, poor thing, she's having a tough time. So anyway, so I will clean out her mouth like that. She doesn't like it, but it cleans out all the gook. But see all of that? See how her entire tongue is full of canker? And then she gets this slimy stuff, and then that's just miserable for her. And then I just take a tissue, and I take my finger. Yes, I know. And she hates it. And I just swab like the roof of her mouth, and you can even take like one of those baby syringes and do it like that too. And you can sometimes get some canker off, which is great. Anyway, so that just in itself helps her a little bit. Now, tube feeding is not easy when they get super thin, because the tube does not go down their throat as well, because there's no fat here, because they're so thin that their throat is all bony, and so it's not easy to get the tube in. And you have to make sure that you don't go down the windpipe, which the windpipe is at the base of the tongue. So you have to go, up and over or around or somewhere to the side. And then you battle a chicken until you get the syringe down to where it needs to be. And you don't want to do it prematurely, because then you're going to get it midway through their throat. And then that's all we do, just like that. Now we've bypassed everything, so her little mouth doesn't get all yucky. She's not choking. The food is in her crop. You can burp them. which is really, really weird. But sometimes if they get a bubble in there, no more food will go in. You can just kind of take the little, and you want to make sure that you don't squeeze the food up, because you can squeeze the food up and then they aspirate. But you can take the little bubble, which is their crop right here, and you can kind of it's just air that comes out, and now I can give her a little bit more food. And now I'm not a vet, so this is not a vet's advice. This is just me, and this is just what I do. And I know a lot of us don't have vets in our town. We have to go all the way to San Antonio, or 30, 40 miles or more to find a vet. And so given that these are poultry, just like dealing with cows and stuff like that, sometimes you have to do some of your own maintenance on the animals. Fowl pox, which is either wet or dry. The wet one is the one that kind of goes into the throat and does the cankers. The dry usually is just this outside stuff. Now, when they get it, it's very common, and it comes from, it can come from wild birds. And so, it doesn't necessarily mean you got it from someone else. I've only gotten my birds from a couple of people. So, I either got it from wild birds, or I got it from one of the birds I got from a couple of people, so it's kind of just how it goes. And when they haven't eaten a lot for a while, the food will go kind of bypass it'll go through the stomach and into the crop and into the intestines and everything really fast, and then the air will come through, and so sometimes you may have to burp them more than once to get any food in. Now, I was doing egg yolk, and I was finding that they throw up the egg yolk often, and then you lose the bird. And so I'm not doing egg yolk right now. Egg yolk becomes very slimy, and when it comes up, it's very hard for them to clear their airway. And so if you do egg yolk, just make sure that you put it into like some KT or something, and just be careful. I mean, you can try different things. It might work for you. For me, with the last few birds that I had, they passed away because they aspirated the egg yolk. They threw up the egg yolk. It also matters what the temperature of the stuff is. If you give them something cold, they can throw it up much easier. It's much easier if it's warm and it matches their body temperature. I have a Polish right now. The little boy, he's gorgeous. Absolutely adore him. He's sweet as anything, and he has pox right now also. And he just doesn't feel good, so he just isn't eating, and so he's really, really thin. I found out that his feet were very cold, his beak, everything was very cold, so I put him under a heat lamp, and he just, we thought he was going to die. We didn't think he was going to make it through the night, so I put him under a heat lamp. You have to be very careful with the heat lamps, please, but we all know about the heat lamp stuff, but you got to be real careful. But I did put him under a heat lamp and fed him. He kept it down, and he did so much better. And I just fed him again, and I'm crossing my fingers. He is really thin, though. So, and we've known he's thin, and we've been doing stuff. But like I said, we ran out of the KT. And I should never run out of the KT. So we went ahead, and my husband got this and refilled the containers because it was cheaper to get the big one. And we got it from the feed store, New Braunfels Feed in town. And so this is been setting for a while, so it's probably really, really thick and really hard to get up in this syringe, so I'll probably have to put a little bit of water in it before I can give her any more. Actually, it went in good. And like I said, I do this most of the time on my own. Sometimes I'll have my husband hold the bird, and if you have your husband hold the bird, make sure the head is on this side and you feed that way, that you have him holding the bird's head on his left, the head on the left, the bottom on the right. And that's the best way for you to be able to feed when they're holding. And, you know, you can have them help, but just, like I said, make sure this thing goes all the way where it needs to go before you push that plunger. Because if you're not in the crop and you're midway and you push the plunger, it's going to come right up that poor little bird's throat, and then they're going to be like coughing it up, and you're going to have to take this thing and swab it out and all that kind of stuff. And it's really good to have, you know, when you go to the hospitals and you have a baby, they give you those little blue plunger thingies that they take all the stuff out of their nose, and they're real pointy, and those are really good for getting the crap out of their throat. So here, I'm going to go ahead and give her another amount. She's doing really well. And then after this, I think we're going to just put her back in her little box. Yeah, you're such a good girl. She is such a good girl. She, even with all these sniffles and everything, she talks to me, and she is just such a sweetheart. I've got several satins, and my satins are just really sweet babies. That's the only bad thing about these syringes is that sometimes they're a little tough to get down the throat because they're, you know, they're not as flimsy. Now, they do have some you can buy that are real flimsy. They don't last long. They get sticky real fast. And also they crimp when you're trying to put them in their throat. And then one of them went down the throat and I lost it. I had to push the neck and get it back out again. And so I think we're good. Are we good? Burp a little bit. Yeah. And that's it. So anyway, so I just wanted to show you, if you do have a bird that has pox is not a death sentence. It can be a little challenging. They do not feel good, even if they have just the pox on the outside. They don't feel good. It does not make them feel good. It makes them feel bad. And so they sometimes will not eat even when the mouth is clear, which is what's going on with Dude right now. His mouth is clear. He has no cankers in his mouth, but he just doesn't want to eat because he doesn't feel good. And his little girl is missing him outside. So I got to get him healthy. And this little girl, she's a sweetheart. And like I said, she's a sweet girl. And so anyway, that's all I wanted to share with y'all today. Doesn't she look awful? Poor baby. But she's spoiled rotten. So living in my bathroom and I have my Echo Dot play her music so she can sit and listen to music. So anyway, I hope this helps somebody. Like I said, if you start to go through wet pox, dry pox, whatever, it's not a death sentence. You can get through it, but there are some tricks and stuff, and a lot of people on here have some other really great information, and so I just like to share what I know in case it helps. So I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.